What's up, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of Bulls Latest. I'm your host, Matt Johnson. I have an exciting show for you guys today. Jumping right into things, the Bulls could tie in directly to a key three-team trade scenario involving Kevin Durant and the Phoenix Suns. Now, let's talk about the details of that and a little bit of what that would entail for Chicago's side of things. This scenario sends Nikola Vucevic and Lonzo Ball to the Phoenix Suns to match salaries there for a move that sends superstar Kevin Durant to San Antonio. This would work perfectly because Phoenix is rumored to want a center in return for any Kevin Durant trade that takes place. That would solve that. And for Chicago, it gets those two veterans and that salary off the books for the Chicago Bulls and offers the Bulls to start fresh and continue upon the mentality of becoming a young, fortified organization moving forward. So that's an exciting situation there. I think it makes a ton of sense for all three teams. Very rarely do you find a three-team trade scenario that fits all three parties in a perfect way. I think this one does. It definitely is something that we're going to want to watch here as the Kevin Durant sweepstakes continue. The Nikola Vucevic sweepstakes certainly continue as well. He's going to be the talk of a lot of scenarios moving forward. I have a couple more I want to get into as we move on in today's show. Jumping into a guy in the upcoming draft, I think is a very exciting development for the Chicago Bulls and Ace Bailey. The freshman guard out of Rutgers there is said to, in a lot of mock drafts, be taken, up to this point at least, top 3 and going to Philly at the 3rd overall selection. However, things have kind of shifted, and the belief is that, Bailey could drop to the Wizards at 6. The most recent mock draft from ESPN has the Wizards selecting him with the 6th overall selection there. So if Philly is kind of wary enough to not take him 3rd overall, that opens up a whole slew of opportunities if you're the teams like Chicago looking to make a splash. And the Bulls are reported to be very interested if he's not taken at 3. I think they have a lot to offer in terms of a guy like Kobe White. I've talked about possibly being moved before that blockbuster deal went down for Bane there in Orlando. So that kind of nullifies that opportunity. But you have teams selecting at 4th and 5th in this year's first round in Charlotte and Utah who aren't going to be interested in taking a guard, most likely. So with Washington picking behind them, the Bulls can kind of move in a direction of leveraging, having the opportunity to speak with teams like Charlotte and Utah and say, hey, I know you guys are younger teams looking to move in a positive direction there. A pitch the Bulls could make, now this is a hypothetical, but Lonzo Ball, would he want to go play with his brother? Could they pitch that to Charlotte in an effort to possibly get that selection in the first round there to take a guy like Ace Bailey? Now, he's a very exciting prospect. I think a guy who in his freshman year at Rutgers averaged 17.6 points a game to go along with 7.2 rebounds a game there. He's a playmaker. His offensive prowess, his elite athleticism make for a guy it would definitely be worth, in my eyes, moving up that far to draft. And if he does fall to 6, the market on him is definitely going to increase for the Chicago Bulls, given that they wouldn't have to move up into a top 3 slot to grab him there. So that'll be something to watch there. He's a guy who, in the likes of a comparison to an NBA player of sorts, reminds me a lot of Paul George or a Tracy McGrady. This guy has all the tools necessary to be a star player. So I just think, if you're going to look to couple a trade package to a team like Utah or Charlotte or even Washington, maybe Washington's willing to listen. It does make a lot of sense there in the direction Washington's heading, though, to want to be all in on a guy like Ace Bailey if he falls to them. So that'll be difficult. But you could center a deal to Charlotte or Utah involving a perennial star in Nikola Vucevic. And you could also throw a couple other veterans in there. And maybe you could move Kobe White to go along with your 12th overall selection. Now, the current mock draft that ESPN did release have the Bulls taking Derek Queen at 12 there. So if they're set on that direction, wouldn't surprise me. That's a guy I've profiled and am very intrigued by the Bulls selecting. That's my personal preference and a selection I want to see the Bulls make happen there. So But Ace Bailey, definitely a intriguing option and a superstar in this year's draft. So fingers crossed that Philly somehow decides not to take him at 3, and that kind of opens the opportunity and the window for the Bulls to act and get on the phone and speak with those teams picking at 4th and 5th there. Jumping into another name here to go along in free agency, Jonathan Kaminga continues to be linked to the Chicago Bulls. He's a name that I've talked about numerous times now as being an option for Chicago and a guy that Golden State is certainly looking to maybe shop. They are rumored to maybe quite possibly want to hang on to him, as I know Steve Kerr likes what he has to offer for that organization. Jonathan Kaminga would be a guy who, to go along with I think the Miami Heat are said to be very interested in him as well. Does not surprise me at all. Eric Spoelstra would definitely plug and play a guy like him in a rotation of, players that have a lot of talent there on that Miami roster. And if Kevin Durant decides to go to Miami, that could be a development that could put Miami in a position to win again right away and be a perennial team in the East. You had Jonathan Kaminga to go along with Kevin Durant. They have Adebayo there still, Tyler Hero. So it doesn't surprise me at all. What would it take for the Bulls to swoop in and get a guy like Kaminga? Probably would go along the likes of a Nikola Vucevic. I think Golden State is looking to add a veteran presence and a guy to couple along with the likes of Jimmy Butler and Hall of Famer Steph Curry. They're in a win now mode. They were right there in the Western Conference this past season, so adding Vooch would be of significance to them. That's a scenario I talked about previously. I think it still has a lot of steam and momentum as we move through the offseason here, so keep an eye on that. This is a unique scenario, though, in that the Bulls, given how the new rules are for a sign and trade deal to go down, it kind of restricts the amount of money the Warriors can take back in a direct trade. So that would mean, this is the option or the detail of this trade that I'm not so high on, but it would mean the Bulls would probably need to offer Kaminga a lot more money than they were willing to initially, given how the rules shake out there. So that's a hefty contract. I think seeing how things play out in the upcoming draft will influence this decision. I don't think Kaminga will be a Bull before the draft. So if Ace Bailey's a Bull, that changes things completely with the Kaminga sweepstakes. It may not. And who knows, Golden State may decide to hang on to him there. But we'll see. Definitely a name to keep an eye on. He will obviously be thrown around in future rumors as well with the Chicago Bulls. I highly anticipate that. Jumping into a controversial player with the Chicago Bulls. This is not the funnest of topics for Bulls fans, but Pat Williams, what he's going to mean to this organization moving forward. He's been a massive disappointment after signing that major $90 million extension. He's in the second year of that coming up now. He's a guy who has dealt with a slew of injuries, has not been able to gain his footing underneath him, and it's been rather disappointing for a Bulls organization that took a swing on him, selecting him at the top of the first round there, hoping that he would be the next superstar for the Chicago Bulls. That has not happened, and it's upset me along with a lot of other Bulls fans. The problem being he's tied to a lot of money now with this Bulls organization. And unlike a couple years ago where the Bulls saw him fitting in what they were trying to do, I don't think he fits what they're trying to do now at all. I think the Bulls playing quick and shooting a lot of perimeter shots and wanting to be a team that is explosive from the perimeter, shooting the three-pointers there as well as getting up and down the floor. Pat Williams doesn't necessarily fit that, and the injuries are going to play a part as well. Will he be the same player that he's been? That remains to be seen in a major way. Obviously, the problem with this would be having to eat a bunch of money when it comes to his contract. And the thing they have going, if they wanted to move him, and certainly a team may take a swing on him, is his age. He's still a very young player. A team could be looking to add someone like that, and they would probably get him at a discounted rate, given the Bulls would probably be responsible for a good chunk of that money there. So We'll have to get into the details on how the contractual obligation would be with a move like that, and if that's even possible. It's very plausible as well. The Bulls could hang on to him and hope to make him into what they envisioned he would be for this team when they drafted him, and that remains to be seen. I hope the best for Pat Will. However, my hope is that the Bulls do cut ties with him. I know a lot of Bulls fans would agree with that take as well. So we'll see how that kind of plays out. Ace Bailey, though, a name to watch here in the upcoming draft. What the Bulls do with that could speak to how they approach some of the names like Kaminga in free agency. Vooch is going to be moved here in a matter of time. That'll be exciting. I'm kind of excited to move on from that situation as well. And get the Bulls headed in this new exciting direction in this Eastern Conference with a team that is widely expected to pay Josh Giddey. And I think a combination of Ace Bailey, Josh Giddey, and Modest Buzelis would be must-see TV next year. So, I would be fine with them selecting a perennial center in the first round as well if they decide to stick at 12. But with this new development, I'm all for it. I'm all for the aggression by the Chicago Bulls and what they could be looking to do there. So, want to thank you guys for joining me on another episode of Bulls Latest. Let me know what you guys think in the comments and what you want to see the Bulls do as we move closer to the draft and through free agency here. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you guys on next week's episode.